What's up, guys? It is Movie with Movie Gaming TV, and today, in honor of MLB The Show 17 Retro Mode, I thought I would go down memory lane and bring you guys some of the games that I grew up with that this mode is based upon, and kind of the evolution of baseball games as a whole. The games that I used to play when I was younger, and now they're going to bring back Retro Mode in MLB The Show 17. So I thought this would be a good time to go back and look at some of the games from yesteryear that kind of formed MLB The Show 17 that we actually know, and why they're bringing back this mode, why this mode is going to be kind of a throwback to the older baseball games. And just, if you don't know anything about the older baseball games, you're going to learn something. If you remember the older games, this is going to be a video that takes you back to that time in the early 90s when we used to play these games, and this was all we had, and it was so much fun to play those games now. And to look at MLB The Show 17 and where we're at with baseball games today and the graphics, it's just amazing to see how far we've come with video games. It's just awesome to me to be able to play MLB The Show 17. I cannot wait for the game to drop. I know you guys can't either. The hype is real. We're only like a little over 2 weeks away from playing what could be the best baseball game of all time. But today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to take a look back at the games that help form what we know in baseball gaming today. Some of the games that I grew up with. If you guys have some videos, or excuse me, if you guys have some games that you used to play that you grew up with, leave them down in the comments below, because I know I'm going to forget somebody's game, and I'd like to know which game you guys played growing up. And with that said, let's get into our first game that we're going to look at. Now, the first game that we're going to look at is Bases Loaded 3. I played this game on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I was probably 4 years old when I started playing this game. I used to always, I think, either go with like that team that was the E or something like that. I think maybe that team that was the E was like really bad. This game didn't have any real rosters at all. It just had like made up players, but it was really fun to play. There was no actual players or anything like that. I don't even think there were seasons in this. I think you just had to like pick teams and then you could play. It had a very weird view, as you can see. Like, you always pitch and you hit from that view, and then you can see how the camera kind of goes back into that weird perspective when you're fielding. So this is like one of the first games that I ever played, probably the first baseball game that I remember ever playing. There was a couple games before it. There was Bases Loaded and Bases Loaded 2. Bases Loaded 2 was really cool because you could like beanball the hitter, and then they would like have like a fight and all this stuff. Like, there'd be an actual brawl and people would get kicked out, and there'd be like a little cart that would come pick the guy up. But they took that out of Bases Loaded 3. And if you guys remember my videos, when I did some videos on power ranking all the players in MLB The Show 16 during the summer, I actually used screenshots from this game for my title card. So Bases Loaded 3 will always have a special place in my heart. I don't own it anymore. I do own a copy of Bases Loaded on NES that I bought, but I would like to get Bases Loaded 3, because Bases Loaded 3 was, I don't know, it was that first baseball game that I ever remember. I think like Ryan Sandberg was on the cover for some reason. Like, I don't really know why they put Ryan Sandberg on the cover, but they did. So this is Bases Loaded 3. This is basically what it looked like, man. This is what I grew up playing, man. And it was so much fun. It probably looks like absolute trash now at this point in time, but it was sweet, man. It was the shit back then. So let's get into our next game. And the next game that I remember playing was RBI Baseball. It was like 91 or 92, I think, when this game came out. It's actually called RBI Baseball 3. There was an RBI Baseball and an RBI Baseball 2, kind of like Bases Loaded, but I was like, when I started playing, it was RBI Baseball 3. This game had, they actually had the real players in this game, but the gameplay of it wasn't that great. But it is very similar, especially like the fielding. And I don't know if the guy that recorded this clip just was like really bad at the game, but the fielding was pretty damn bad. But there's very similar gameplay to how the pitcher and batter move around on the rubber, and you can move back and forth in the box, all that kind of stuff to kind of set up the angle like they have in the new game. And I know they've released some new RBI baseballs lately on the current gen of consoles. Like, I think definitely on Xbox, it might be the only baseball game you can get now. And I also think they have it on PS4. And I think this is the main reason that MLB The Show went after putting this mode out, because they're like, hey, we can do this and get all of those sales. So now let's move into a more historic game. Now, this game I never really got to play as a kid, but I thought it was very important to include in this list because with King Griffey Jr. on the cover of MLB The Show 17, this was the first game that Griffey was ever in. Now, as a kid, I had NES, and then I got a Sega Genesis or a Sega Mega Drive. If you're watching this video over in Europe, that's what it was known as over there. And I never had a Super Nintendo until I was much older, so I never got to play this game. But there used to be this magazine called Nintendo Power, and they'd always show like codes and screenshots from this game. So I always wanted to play this game, but I never got the chance to. But I thought it was very important to put in this list, and it was the only game in this list that I didn't play a bunch of, but it was the first game that Griffey was ever in. And it was a pretty groundbreaking game as we move from, you know, the NES versions of baseball games into the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis era of video games for baseball games. And so I wanted to bring you guys a couple clips of it so you could see the first game that Griffey was ever in. Now, the next game that I'm going to show you guys might be my favorite game of all from this era. Definitely from the Sega Super Nintendo era. This game was the shit. Oh my god. The game I'm talking about, of course, is World Series Baseball 95. I remember I got this game from the store called Funko Land, which is kind of like GameStop. GameStop actually bought Funko Land. I got this game for like $5, and it was the shit, man. It had legends. You could do a draft for your team. It even had this, you know, it had like Lou Brock. It had Lou Gehrig. It had everybody, man. It had Dizzy Dean. It might have even had Babe Ruth. I can't even remember it. I think it might have. This game was the absolute shit, man. Like, just having seasons, being able to do a fantasy draft was a new thing back then, where you just draft your team full of players. And, you know, we'd always do seasons. I'd go over to my neighbor's house, and we'd like have our seasons and control a couple teams. World Series Baseball was just an unbelievable classic. It's just an unbelievable game. You can even see it had that strike zone view, man. It was on top of things, man. It was great. World Series Baseball 95 was an unbelievable game. It was so much fun just playing for hours, playing the whole season out. It was great. You know, drafting your team. It was really, really fun. There was also a World Series Baseball 96 that was cool, but then they had World Series Baseball 98. Just kind of updated the graphics, had new legends in there as well. The same great gameplay. And it was like, all right, now sports games, like every year they're coming out. We're getting new rosters every year with the new players. Just so awesome, man. I love the World Series Baseball series of games. They were so much fun. The gameplay was great. The amount of stuff that you could do was great. It was so much fun. Always selecting that power swing. The pitching was fun. You know, always selecting fast. It was great. I seriously loved this game so much. And just going back and making this video and making this list, this is one that I would be very interested to hear if anybody else out there used to play the World Series Baseball games on Sega, because I love the World Series Baseball series. I think, you know, like they had Root, they had like Ty Cobb as a legend, they had Walter Johnson, they had like everybody as a legend, man. Those early legends from like the early parts of baseball. And also some great years with some 90s teams, you know. You got the Astros with the three Bs with Biggio and Bagwell and Bell, and the great Indians teams and the great Yankees teams and the great Braves teams, which was really cool about getting the roster update, you know, because you'd play the shit out of 95, 96, then you get to like 97, 98, and you got the new rosters. It was a new thing that was just so awesome back then. Now the next game we're going to get into is a game by Frank Thomas. Now, this is Frank Thomas's Big Hurt Baseball. It was a lot of fun. Came out in 1995, I want to say, around the same time as World Series Baseball 95. And I used to play the absolute shit out of this game with cousins and friends. Like, this is one of my first Sega games I ever got, and it actually was really good. Like, the guy that recorded this footage, he was pretty freaking ass on defense, which kind of was the theme of, like, a lot of the footage when I had to go get this footage off the internet to, like, bring you guys this video. But this game was so much fun, too. Griffey was in this game. Like, everybody was in this game. They had a couple stances. They, like, tried to match the stances up with the player that it was. You just kind of selected the pitch, and then it would throw the pitch. And you guys can see that, like, plate that, you know, you can move the ball around, select your different pitches. The pitchers had their pitches, I'm pretty sure. And I think, like, the game looked really good. It, like, looked really awesome. So, Big Hurt Baseball also, you could hit, like, 600-foot home runs. Like, you could hit monstrous home runs. They had a season mode and stuff like that, but they didn't have any legends or anything like that. They just had, like, the players that were in the current season. I think it was, like, the 95, 96-ish season. And a little Easter egg that I found when I was researching this game. So they also came out with something called, like, Sega Saturn and Sega CD, which as a kid I was not nearly rich enough to have, like, these systems. But check out, like, the Sega Saturn preview for this game. This is just, like, crazy, man. Like, I would have fucking lost my shit if I had, like, a Saturn back then. Like, this is an unbelievable video.
The best ball player going right now.
Just like the real thing.
We have the best ball player going right now.
The Big Hurt.
Alright, so now we're going to get into one of the most iconic baseball video games of all time. And it starts with the theme song of this game. This is my generation of baseball games. I'm getting a little bit older in my life. And, you know, we're seeing these guys on TV. I know who all the players are in the league. It's the height of the steroid era, so everyone's hitting bombs. It's the McGwire, Griffey, Bonds, Larry Walker era. Sammy Sosa was just on the rise. Wasn't even as good in the first game, but in the second. But this is just the iconic Griffey Jr. game that everybody remembers. Everybody plays. It still holds up to this day. It is probably the best baseball game of all time, in my opinion, of the old school generation, if that makes any sense. So we have to watch the theme song.
Hi, this is Ken Griffey Jr. Let's play Major League Baseball. It's showtime. Call me Junior. 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 It's showtime.
If you played this game back in the day, that song is just like music to your ears. That it's showtime. That is like iconic, man. Like, you just hear 2 seconds of that and you know what game it was. And we're like a year away from, geez, I don't even know. It says copyright 1998. This game's almost 20 years old. That blows my mind. But it feels like it was yesterday. This game was amazing, man. And there's so many reasons why. First of all, amazing franchise mode. Just unbelievable franchise mode. Like, you could do so many things. You could do the fantasy draft. It had, like, this is when we started getting to, like, more ratings for players. You know, like, they'd have, like, a couple of ratings instead of, like, one rating type of deal. the computer, you could set the computer to accept all of your trades, so you could build like a super amazing team, or you could set the computer to accept only a couple of your trades, you know, like only fair trades. And maybe if you set it to do only fair trades, you would start out with like the Cleveland Indians, who had a stacked team, or the Braves. So you had like a lot of trade potential, you know, you could like make some moves with their good players. So this game was just incredible. It reminds me of kind of like the zone hitting that we see in the current gen of games, because this is where this is how I think about zone hitting a lot of the times. It's just from this game was where kind of zone hitting started. Now, in MLB The Show 17 and MLB The Show, they don't have like an indicator of that square box of where you need to move the circle, but you do like move the circle. PCIs in the game get bigger and smaller depending on ratings. They're either real small, like a medium size, or they're like super huge for like guys like Griffey and Bonds and Larry Walker. They had like the super huge ones. I think also Edgar Martinez did as well. But this game was just unbelievable. Just an absolute classic. Like, if someone were to update the game with current rosters, I have a feeling people would still play this game. It is that good. There are so many legends that they could pull from this game to put in MLB The Show 17 if they wanted to. There's just so many great players from this era, this kind of steroid era of baseball. As you see Alex Rodriguez on the Mariners stepping up to the plate, and he was an absolute beast in this game. Garcia Parra was a beast in this game as well. Derek Jeter at shortstop. Roberto Alomar was amazing in this game as well. We're going to see him in MLB The Show 17, but I'd love to see more players from this era get put into the game so that we can use them again, like Big Mac, Mark McGwire, Sosa, Larry Walker, Randy Johnson, man, Roger Clemens. That would just be so great. Mariano Rivera, like, where is he at? As the ball gets hit over Manny Ramirez's head, I'd love to see Manny Ramirez back in this game. This was an all-time classic. Like, this game is so good that it's not even just one of the best baseball games of all time. It's one of the best sports games of all time. And then you can see Griffey. He had that huge PCI. Griffey was so cheesy in this game, by far, like, the best player in this game. I don't know, Bonds, Walker, and Griffey were the best, but you'd have to say Griffey was the best player in this game. And now what's cool is they released this game, and then a year later they released the sequel to this game that we're going to talk about next, and that was King Griffey Jr.'s baseball. Like, it was Slugfest. It was Major League Baseball featuring King Griffey Jr. Or King Griffey Jr.'s Slugfest. I think that's the name of the game, was King Griffey Jr.'s Slugfest. So we're going to take a look at that game next. There was a couple differences, but it was so important for me to show you the theme song, because check out the next theme song that they had for King Griffey Jr. Slugfest. It was just like, oh my God, we got another one of these games. There's a couple differences, and I'll also explain those differences, but let's get right into this theme song.
It's showtime.
And this will fly away Junior's second home run of the night. We're going to have a slugfest. Makes the leap and makes the catch. Another unbelievable Junior masterpiece.
It's showtime.
Junior, his third home run of the night, and what a slugfest we have going tonight. Here it is, and it is swung on and belted deep to right field into the upper deck. Get out the rye bread and mustard, Grandma. It is grand salami time.
It's showtime.
Again, just another iconic theme song that just gets you hyped up to play the game. There are some differences in this game. When you hold down a pitch, when you're pitching, you can like hold down the button if you want to throw it at max strength or not at max strength. I never really liked that too much about this game. I liked in the other one that you just could select your pitch and it was max pitch. But something that's very interesting is we kind of have the early adoption of the wedge hitting. Instead of just having like a rectangle, like that circle that we had before, now in this game we actually have like some wedge type of hitting, and you guys will see in the interface of the game when the guy steps up to bat here. Now he's got like a wedge when he's hitting instead of just a circle. So you can see that wedge. I think this is like the earliest that we have ever seen a wedge in a baseball game. Instead of just the circle, you have the wedge. That's one of the main differences as well. The graphics are a little bit better, like they're a little bit cleaned up. The stances are a little bit closer, like to what they should be for each player. But the game definitely got a little bit of a graphic overhaul. Some of the things were cleaned up as well as far as the gameplay is concerned as well. But if I had to pick one or the other, like Slugfest was really cool for the time, better rosters and stuff like that. But I think I would go with the original compared to if I had to pick one, just because I like the pitching better. Like when you're playing against an opponent, and this is like before you could play online, so when you're playing like against some of your friends, they can kind of hear if you're going to throw like a super fast pitch because you're going to have to hold the button down for a really long time. So if I have to pick one of the two, I pick King Griffey Jr., the original one on N64, over Slugfest. But Slugfest is still like a really awesome game. Now the last games I'm going to talk about are World Series Baseball 2K1 and World Series Baseball 2K2. They both came out on the Dreamcast, and they were the last ever games of the World Series franchise before they became just like 2K Baseball. And I love these games a bunch. I used to play these games a bunch in high school with one of my buddies. We just play the crap out of these games on the weekends. Just play game after game after game. Sometimes we would make it so you had to throw strikes down the middle so we'd have huge scoring games. So this game was an absolute blast. I got to play it just a little bit at the end of its life cycle. Some of the games that I wish I would have brought up would have been King Griffey Jr. I think there might have been one on SNES that I might not have brought up. All-Star Baseball, I know a lot of people would remember. Triple Play, I think there's a game with like Mike Piazza on the cover for N64. I didn't talk about any of the PlayStation games, the original PlayStation. Some other games, like I know there's like MVP Baseball. I'm not going to really get that far down the line. Some of the early MLB The Show games, I'm not going to get that far down the line. I'm just going to stop here because we got to at some point kind of keep this list to a retro list. So guys, what were some of your favorite baseball games growing up? Are you growing up with the show now? Did you even go back to the Atari age when it comes to some baseball games? Do you have some other NES games like Baseball Stars? I know I left out. Tecmo Baseball, I believe. Anything else on the Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis that I left out? N64, PlayStation. You know, did you have a Saturn or something like that? Just let me know in the comments below, guys. Please drop a like on this video, guys. This video took a long time to put together, so if you could drop a comment or a like or a sub, that would be great. That I would appreciate that so much. It would mean a lot to me. And also, guys, we're going to do an old school. Let me know if you guys made it to the end of the video and watched this whole video. I want to know who those folks are so I can give you a shout out in the comments below. And guys, thank you so much for watching. That MLB The Show 17 content is on the way. I promise you, man, I'm just as hyped about this game as you are. I cannot wait to play it and make content for it. I'm just dying to do that. I'm going to be thinking of some creative ideas down the stretch so I can keep bringing you guys the best baseball content possible that I can. And you know we're going to be hitting it hard with MLB The Show 17. I'm going to have the dopest, flyest team for you guys to watch. So be sure to check that out in the coming days, in the coming future here as we get closer and closer. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out. Have a great day.